Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who are joining us live. My name is Milan Vaishnav. I am the director of the South Asia program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. I am delighted to welcome you and to welcome our special guests for what promises to be a fascinating look at the recently concluded 2024 Indian general elections. I think most of our viewers will undoubtedly know we have had quite an interesting surprise in terms of the eventual verdict. The BJP, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has emerged as the single largest party, but has fallen short of the majority mark of 272 seats in the Lok Sabha, the lower house of parliament. It is, however, set to form the next government on June 8th. It will do so only with the help of its partners in the National Democratic Alliance, or the NDA. To make sense of these results, what they mean for Indian politics more generally, I am joined today by two veteran observers of the Indian political scene. We have with us today Sunetra Choudhury. She is the national political editor of the Hindustan Times. She leads all of HT's political coverage. She's been burning the candle, I think, at both ends to try and keep up with the latest news. Many of you will know that HT has been our partner over the last 8 or 9 months on our India Elects 2024 series. This is a series of kind of deep dives, essays, looking into the changing dynamics of Indian political behavior. Sunetra, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me here, Milan.
And we also have Rahul Verma, who is a fellow at the Center for Policy Research in New Delhi. He's also a visiting assistant professor at Ashoka University. I think most of you will know Rahul from the hours upon hours he has spent in television studios over the past week or so, but he's also the co-author of a terrific book. It actually tells us a lot about Indian politics today, called Ideology and Identity, the Changing Party Systems of India. Welcome to you, Rahul.
Thank you, Milan, for having me.
So we have exactly 60 minutes, 57 minutes to be precise. I'm not going to waste any more time with the niceties. I want to jump right in. Those of you who are out there watching, please submit your questions on YouTube. We'll turn to them in the latter half of our conversation. Sunetra, let me just begin with you. And I think maybe just to set the scene, let's start with the top lines, right? What are the big numbers we need to know about the BJP, its NDA alliance, and then the Congress and the India alliance on the other side? We are sitting here about 24 hours after the verdict really solidified. I want you also to tell us how the news went down in different parts of the national capital yesterday.
Okay, so 24 hours on, the party which went into the election with 303 MPs and aimed at getting at least 370 MPs, and with the NDA of 400 plus MPs, of course, that was the headline that we all kept repeating, and that was the question that we kept asking them, now has 240 MPs in parliament, and NDA adds a 50 odd more MPs, so 293 for NDA, which means that even with their allies, they are now short of the 300 and shorter than the 303 tally that they had on their own last time round. So that's significant, and that actually becomes the core or everything that we're going to see in the government right now and what's playing out here in Delhi right now. I just want to tell all your viewers as well, Milan, that as I came into this recording, my colleagues are all tracking, working the phone lines, trying to figure out exactly what happened at that meeting that Modi had with these allies. And somebody was telling me that, you couldn't see so many of his ministers anymore. On his left was Chandrababu Naidu. On his right was Nitish Kumar. So allies are literally at the high table right now. More on that later, some more numbers which would be of interest to your viewers. So Congress, which went into the elections with 52 and were, if we gave the expectation for the BJP of improving their tally of 303, they went into it with low expectations. The BJP said they're not going to get more than 50. They themselves said, no, we should be fine with at least 75. Well, they got almost 100. They've got 99, and they have at least 2 independents who are attached to them. So about just over 100 MPs for the Congress as well. So this time we won't see that kind of lobbying that we did or pleading for the leader of the opposition role. These simple things that they had to, these humiliating moments that the grand old party had to go through in the last 2 terms. So they will get the leader of the opposition. And the allies are also meeting right now, the India opposition bloc leaders. They're at 234. To your other question about how it all went down, how it was received, well, of course, I think I would be incorrect in my reporting if I said that nobody in the BJP saw this coming. Nobody, of course, said these numbers publicly. They all said, no, of course, we'll be very comfortable. We will at least get 303. And if it goes down because of the fact that it's been 10 years anti-incumbency, then we can expect it to be about 280 or 295, nothing lower than that. But unofficially, off the record, you had lots of people, especially those, Milan, who are associated with Maharashtra, the only state where I actually traveled. They knew, because they talk about the Maharashtrian culture, which did not like so many people changing sides, the manipulations that happened, the early morning swearing-ins that took place with Maharashtra government. And of course, both the alliances are made up of split-up parties, right? Just factions of the Shiv Sena and factions of the NCP. So all of them knew, and because Maharashtra is a huge solid block of 48 MPs, they knew that that 48 block of MPs were under threat, and that seemed to be the only realistic threat going into the election, the unknown factor which threatened to bring down the 303 or the 370 dream that the BJP had. So yes, when the numbers started coming out, it really was a lot of shock. And I think that was evident in the fact that the BJP MPs had been told to gather at 3:45 in the afternoon. We saw the gathering, of course, but it was a much more, even they won't admit, it was a much more subdued affair. There weren't big laddus being passed around in BJP yesterday.
So just to kind of put everyone on the same page, we have the BJP at 240, and the two principal allies that we're speaking about are the JDU of Nitish Kumar, whose bailiwick is in the state of Bihar, and Chandrababu Naidu, the leader of the TDP in Andhra Pradesh, which not only now is sort of a kingmaker, but the TDP has also come to power in the state of Andhra Pradesh, which had simultaneous elections alongside these national elections. We'll come back to these two gentlemen and their parties in a second. Of course, there are a host of other smaller NDA allies, which also do have some muscles that they can flex. Rahul, let me just come to you on the expectations point, okay? And I'm sorry to ask you this because you've already probably had to answer this, but I think it's important to get out there in front. Yet again, it's not for the first time, the exit polls have led us astray. But it's not just the exit polls, right? Because even if you go back to the start of this year, the pre-election surveys suggested a crushing majority for the BJP on its own, let alone the NDA. But even I would just say general elite public opinion presumed that this government would come back with the full majority. Why do you think this election was so difficult to get an accurate read on?
See, if I have to summarize this, Milan, exit polls actually got just 3 states wrong. UP, Maharashtra, and West Bengal. These 3 states actually are the 3 largest states. 80 seats in UP, 48 seats in Maharashtra, and 42 seats in Bengal. And that basically makes the all the difference. Had BJP done repeated its performance in UP, they would have been closer to their 272 mark. And had they got the numbers they had in MP, Maharashtra and West Bengal, they would have been around 303. So to me, there are lots of pollsters, but there are only a couple of them with good track record. And by good track record, they have been in the business for at least 10 to 15 years. They have been getting elections right. And more importantly, at least these 3-4 pollsters tell us about their methodology, the sample size, and vote share and seats. So I think because all 3 or 4 pollsters in pre-poll had indicated that BJP is comfortably coming back to power. While during the campaign, there was a lot of conversation, as Sunetra also hinted. Many people who were traveling on the ground were telling us that, things look a bit difficult and tighter on the ground than you would have anticipated. Everything was tossed up when exit polls came out on Saturday, because there was a convergence and consensus. So like on Saturday, if anyone spoke to me on Sunday, I basically said, now the elections are over. Since there is convergence among pollsters, I don't see things changing in a way. Yes, BJP might win 10, 15, 20 seats less or more, but the big picture finding from exit poll is that BJP is coming back to power, and coming back to power with a majority. And exit polls do get few things right and few things wrong. But what we have seen in last 3 elections, at least 2009, 14, and 2019, while they may not have been able to get the exact number, which is hard in Indian case anyway, they had got the direction of results right. And so my anticipation with those exit polls of last 3 elections was that we have now kept the fiasco of 2004 behind us, but it seems 2004 got repeated in 2024. The anticipation for someone like me who follows exit polls very closely, and even if they got beaten down this time, I would still look at those numbers more than anything else, because they tell me a lot about how Indian sport and other things. The expectation in a national election is that you might call or overestimate one party in one state and underestimate in other state. Those errors will cancel out and you'll be closer to the national majority. It seems all errors got loaded in one direction, which was overestimating BJP in 3 biggest states, and that made the entire difference.
I mean, just to sort of flag that I have some sympathy here for the people who have to do this, right? In Uttar Pradesh, 80 seats, you had an alliance between the Samajwadi Party and the Congress working together. It was unclear how this was going to translate. It's not just that you can mechanically add up the 2 vote shares and put them together. There's a degree of chemistry that's involved. Maharashtra, Sunetra mentioned, I mean, it's what we call a khichdi, right? I mean, you had 2 blocks. You had the BJP and the Shiv Sena. You had the Congress and the NCP. That all basically went to hell in a handbasket because the NCP split, the Shiv Sena split. Everybody got mixed in. And then West Bengal, of course, Mamata Banerjee of the Trinamool Congress, which did very well, chose not to join the India Alliance. She was contesting on her own. So, I mean, these are very complicated. It makes a U.S. style, 2-party Democrat versus Republican race look like child's play. Sunetra, let me just sort of come to you for a second on these 2 big allies that we brought up at the top, the TDP and the JDU. My question to you is, did the BJP high command have some inkling ahead of these elections that additional help would be needed, right? Because both JDU and TDP had been earlier NDA allies. For various reasons, they had exited the coalition. Do you think that the powers that be in the BJP had a sneaking suspicion that when push comes to shove, we might need a little insurance?
I think so, Milan. I think you're right. I'll tell you why. Because I think, everyone talks about the might and the resources of the BJP. What they really have, which the Congress now lacks, is that they have a fantastic feedback system. It comes from so many places. Like, for example, whenever I try to look for some information, and right now the BJP organization had become quite opaque, so people were wary about speaking. Then all I needed to do was to call up ABVP activists on the ground in a particular state, and they would always know, have a general sense of the ideology or the feeling or the aspect on a certain thing. So for example, if I needed to know what was going wrong in Maharashtra or what happened in Uttarakhand, all I needed to do was to call up the ABVP there. So or the ABVP, the local party workers, they have various ways of doing it. Also the because they had all these organizations, their resources helped them to do so many surveys. I mean, one of the reasons why this is so surprising, and I spoke with their number person who had told them, he's given me a state by state breakup, Milan, of what to expect on the 4th. And the number was 320, 315. And the reason how they come to those numbers is that, they have immense number of people making 5,000 calls a day or something like that, with loads of people. They have agencies like Association of Billion Minds, Jarvis, Virahe. These are the 3 organizations which are led by people or headed by people who are part of their ideology. They're not unlike the Congress, which handles highest professionals. These people who are invested ideologically to do this work, right? So all of these people are constantly polling. So it looks like they may have had, but ostensibly, of course, we had done this story, Milan, if you recall, a year before, in June last year, saying that because it was the 25th anniversary of NDA, Modi wanted to go into the election by recreating the old NDA. And that is why last year they started reaching out to everyone. So, we know about the conversations they had with Sukhbir Badal, the conversations they had with everyone. So when India Alliance started coming together, there was an attempt to also show that, look, we can also be a big bloc. And also the attempt was that before people like Vaishnav, people like Sukhbir are approached by the India Alliance, they should be kept with them. So this whole work started a year ago. I think some of the really smart people within the BJP kind of figured out that 10 years would be a lot. I've heard within the BJP as well, they told me very clearly that, there is something different this time. The voter seems very listless to us. So they said, we'll make up the numbers this time. We'll definitely make up the numbers. But I think we have to do something within a year or two, because otherwise Rahul Gandhi's popularity is really rising. Now, for BJP senior leaders like a chief minister or a union minister to tell me, even in a private conversation, that Rahul Gandhi's popularity is rising meant that they were very aware. I think they were not aware of the scale of this. And that's what's taken them really by surprise.
Rahul, let me just kind of zoom in for a second on Uttar Pradesh. You're from Uttar Pradesh. You know it well. You've traveled extensively. The BJP alliance won just 37 of the state's 80 seats, right? And as you said before, if they had only matched their 2019 total, they would have clinched a single party majority, right? I mean, this is a make or break state. Tell us what you think happened in UP, right? I mean, as you reflect now, how do you explain the result to the best of your ability?
Short answer, I don't know. Now let me try a long answer.
In classic fashion, I don't know, but let me tell you.
Yeah. So UP is a very complex state. The reason it's complex, if you look at UP's population, it would be 7th largest country in the world, right? So even if I am from the place and have traveled extensively, to pretend that I know the state well means saying that I know a continental-sized country very well. So I want to start with that caveat. See, I think one thing which needs to be kept in mind, especially after 24 hours of after the results, is that there is no single overarching explanation that would apply to this election, because any theory that you are going to come up with is not going to be applicable in the neighboring state. If you say economic distress played the big role, look at India's map from Gujarat to Odisha. It will be hard to find a non-saffron seat, which is like poor, tribal-dominated region, and BJP has swept that thing. If you think alliance worked, yes, it worked in UP and Maharashtra, but in the neighboring state of Bihar, where it was expected that its alliance with RJD is going to do well. NDA has managed to retain most of the seats. So I think what happened in UP is a confluence of factors. Confluence of factors would be the alliance itself, SP and Congress. Two, I think UP is one of the states where BJP actually renominated most of its MPs.
Sure.
Right? So
Yeah.
in many states,
51, I'm
yeah,
told.
so yes, so BJP have actually in most of the states have not renominated 50%. In UP, this is the renomination rate is 75% or higher. Third, I think uh, the BJP's sort of like over ambitious slogan of "Ab ki baar 400 par" backfired in multiple ways. Some of the BJP's core supporters or fence sitters became overconfident that BJP is anyway going to win. Why do we need to do the hard work? Congress and SP is a sort of a weaker alliance in comparison to the Congress, SP and BSP alliance of 2019. If we manage to defeat them, this is a cakewalk. And I think then this counter offensive of opposition that BJP needs this kind of number to be to make tweaks in the constitution, take away your reservation rights. This might have worked much more in context of UP in compared to other state because you had a BSP which was in power. So within the Dalit community, there is a lot more political consciousness than compared to other places. And then it is also being sort of like what I can confirm that SP's sort of like ticket distribution strategy was better. Things actually like during the campaign. So perhaps the pre-poll surveys were estimating BJP is going to do well because at that time candidate nomination hadn't happened. But once the candidate nomination started happening, you started hearing the murmurs of local level anti-incumbency. This candidate is not great, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think it's a confluence of factors what worked against the BJP in UP.
Sunetra?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more because I think that Rahul, I don't know whether you will agree or not, but I think we can't completely dismiss the conspiracy theory which was going around, which seems to have been backed by BJP's top leadership that RSS didn't work for them that much this time. I heard two explanations. Of course, we asked everyone this, and one leader told me that of course they were out there. I met them myself. They were out there working and stuff. So that was an outright denial, despite Nadda saying what he did in that Indian Express interview. But the second person said to me that the only time that it's wrong for the media to ascribe motive to this. They said that the RSS only steps out in or tries to make a change when, like in 2014, they needed to make a change, and that's why they mobilized themselves. They said they were as much at work this time as they were in 2019, which is, passively working instead of the active work that they did in 2014. So it definitely seemed that there was a role that the RSS played in the results, or the RSS was aware of it. I don't think the entire story is out till now, but it is definitely something that we political observers can dismiss.
Let me just kind of, just for those who haven't been paying attention, Sunetra, you mentioned a very puzzling Indian Express interview in which the BJP party president JP Nadda said something, and I'm paraphrasing here,
Yes.
back in the olden days when the BJP was weaker, we had to really rely on the RSS and the Sangh Parivar, the kind of ecosystem of organizations that form this Hindu nationalist family, to win elections. But now we're big and strong, and we don't need them as much, which is a very odd thing to say in the middle of an election. And at the end of the day, these are your boots on the ground. These are your foot soldiers, right? So, I mean, I think many of us kind of scratched our heads at the time saying that's like a strange thing to do in an on-the-record interview.
Yes. And not just that, I mean, you had all of these details coming out, and there were these rumors about visits to Nagpur, where Nagpur, the Mohan Bhagwat didn't meet top BJP leaders and things like that. So yes, the RSS theme stayed there throughout, and I think that it played a role in this particular election, definitely in Uttar Pradesh.
So we're getting questions coming in. We will take those in a few minutes. Please keep sending them if you're watching this on YouTube. Sunetra, let me just stay with you for 1 second. Number one on Rahul's list of 4 factors was alliance politics, right? And I think it's fair to say many of us are surprised by the level of traction the India alliance had on the ground, right? Because remember, this is an alliance that doesn't have a single leader. They don't have a common platform. They, in some sense, were fighting with one hand tied behind their back. Some of their leaders were arrested and jailed. The Congress bank accounts were frozen. They were probably outspent by several orders. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. As you make sense of the national picture, what do you think the alliance actually managed to get right this time?
I want to start with a quote from someone, and his party is, of course, not very fashionable right now. They aren't in power or anything, but he said something which just stayed with me in an interview. Sitaram Yechuri, and I think this was in 2019 or whatever, I had once asked him,
and this is the leader of the Communist Party of India, Marxist.
Sorry, I should always give context for your viewers as well. So Sitaram Yechuri, I once asked him, this is, I think, around 2019, why would they vote for an opposition? Because you have so many people, there's no particular leader. Tina factor is always there, and Tina factor is something that the BJP relies on. And he said to me, was there a leader in 2004? There was no leader. Sometimes people decide to vote people out. And that happens, and it will happen again. So maybe I want to start by saying that, that is one of the theories that many people believe in, because that would also explain why there are different factors in different, how these elections got localized. And, as Rahul was saying, you had different factors in Uttar Pradesh. I definitely know of different factors in Rajasthan and all, but let me not digress. Let me come back to your question of what worked for the alliance. I think what really worked for them initially, there were lots of hiccups that we reported, right? The meetings were very disjointed. Mamata Banerjee, of course, the fact that they couldn't get through and all. But I think towards the end, it all seemed to come together. You could make out from things like, for example, they didn't have an alliance in Punjab. Yet, I know for a fact, and that's one of the stories I was thinking of doing just the day of, on Saturday, on the 1st, when the exit polls came out, and then it seemed like the India alliance wasn't relevant anymore. So I, kind of put the story in the back shelf. But anyway, one of the stories that emerged is that Rahul Gandhi, who's otherwise not known to be, his mother, Sonia Gandhi, the UPA chairperson, she was the one who was the key person with all the allies, right? She would call people up. She would call Mamata Banerjee up. But in this particular one, we know for a fact that even in taking internal decisions, Rahul Gandhi consulted with all the allies. So whether to fight Amethi or not, whether to fight in Raebareli or not, he picked up the call and spoke to Akhilesh several times. And Akhilesh, in fact, encouraged him even to come back to Amethi. So there was constant dialogue. But Akhilesh is someone he's been in alliance with before. So that's not very surprising. What I found really surprising was that Rahul Gandhi and Arvind Kejriwal. Now, Arvind Kejriwal, the leader of the Aam Aadmi Party and Delhi's chief minister, they were born out of a visceral hatred for the Congress party because they were in power that time. And yet they successfully established a relationship, so much so that I think one of the quotable quotes that came out of this election season was Rahul Gandhi saying, I'm going to vote for Arvind Kejriwal, and Arvind Kejriwal is going to vote for the Congress party. I think all of this really had, I'm not sure whether it really translated in Delhi, but in Punjab, I know for a fact that my sources were telling me that even though they didn't have an alliance in Punjab, at least in 2 of the 13 seats, they had an understanding there as well. So whether it came a little late in the day, this alliance that came together, and perhaps that explains why they fell short, but they did manage to get their act together somehow. Would you also like me to go through what the Congress did right, perhaps what worked for them?
So
Or-
let's come back to that in a second. I want to just ask sort of Rahul one question, which kind of leads off of where this conversation is going, which is, Rahul, we used to have, as political scientists, this model of Indian politics. And we used to say, we don't have national elections. We essentially have a series of state-by-state elections, and we kind of aggregate them up. In fact, the hero of this election, Yogendra Yadav, the hero because he's the one who predicted the outcome correctly, is the person who used to write about this, in the 1990s and early 2000s. And then we sort of dismissed all of that in the Modi era, post-2014, where we had these national waves, right? First in 2014, then in 2019. I think we were expecting to see that again, but we didn't. I mean, is it fair to say that this election in 2024 is essentially an aggregation of state-level verdicts, or is that too simplistic?
I think it would be too quick to make that analysis. Milan, you've known me for now more than a decade. And I have always said this, that counting day always surprises me because not the top line numbers, but the details of it. So I was someone who actually thought that, national elections now will have national momentum. And so either BJP is going to do really badly, which is that they will go down below 220, or the national momentum will keep them there and they'll be closer to 270 across that. What this election teaches me is that no majority is permanent, and no theory about Indian elections is permanent. Right? So those who might have argued that states continue to matter, if you look elections not just from 2014, it started happening from 2009 when Congress made gains. It made gains across the board, and that trend got solidified with BJP in 2014 and 2019. And so I think it seems that 2024 has thrown up either state level verdicts or regional level verdicts, and the element of national sort of has gone down a little bit. But I wouldn't be quickly dismissing it because, see, as social scientists, my job is to take a step back and see what has happened in a bigger picture rather than someone got right or wrong. We can keep playing that game. Those who got right this time, they got it wrong a few months back, and those who got wrong this time, they have got right in past, and they will continue to get right in future. So if focus is going to be calling elections right, everybody would have been millionaire. It's trying to understand what's actually happening in the society.
Sunetra, let me just, we haven't really talked about some of the BJP success areas. And so maybe we could just spend a second on that. We've talked a lot about the losses that they experienced in parts of the Hindi belt, as well as in places like Maharashtra, West Bengal. And that's all true. But of course, the party did make new inroads in certain places. The state of Odisha, for instance, it won nearly all Lok Sabha seats. I think it won all but one, wiping out the BJD in the parliamentary level. It also won the state assembly in Orissa for the very first time. It increased its presence in the south, mainly in terms of votes, but also in a few places in terms of seats. How significant do you think these inroads are? And do you think the party is happy with their performance in these quote unquote kind of new frontiers?
I think they are very happy. I think it's come as a huge face saver for them, and it all fits in with their long-term goals. I remember us running this story in 2019, just a week or so after the election results came in, and at that time, Sunil Devdhar, who had scripted the win in Tripura, telling us that what the party's main focus is to develop it along the east coast of India. I think they call it the Koramangala, that is, the Odisha, Telangana. And I think what is significant is that they have achieved success in their goals. So they set up these really long-term, ambitious goals. which is to break through in the Kerala, state of Kerala, to break through in Tamil Nadu, to break through in Odisha. And to think, Milan, that just a couple of months ago, I was reporting on the deal that almost happened with BJD, with the Biju Janata Dal in Odisha. It is fantastic that even though the Prime Minister sent his own aide, he sent PK Mishra, his principal secretary, to Odisha to strike that alliance, which he was keen on. And then we saw this major backlash from the BJP's local unit, which obviously saw an opportunity and the ability to form government over there. And the party listening to its local unit. So one has to acknowledge how BJP has been quite flexible in these things. And these are strategies which I think really work for them. They really, even though the local unit had to really argue it out. I think there were lots of meetings. Then Pandian, who is is the principal aide of Naveen Patnaik, who was also very keen. I think they also saw their fortunes and their prospects going down. So for the BJP to decide to go it alone in Odisha and do this and come up with this, they've virtually completely finished off the BJD. So I think it comes as a huge face saver. We saw it in Prime Minister Modi's speech yesterday. It focused a lot on these points, on the fact that they'd won this particular seat in Kerala. They had been expecting, they almost got 2 seats as well. They were thinking that they would get Rajiv Chandrasekhar's seat in Thiruvananthapuram as well. That would have been a huge, huge upset. But the fact that they got even this single seat in Kerala is majorly significant. So yes, I think it just shows BJP's ability to really gain, and of course doubling their numbers in Telangana. Telangana, of course, the gains at the cost of BRS's the BRS parties and KCR's complete. They've also been completely wiped out. So they are doing it at the cost of regional parties, and that is also obviously a strategy. We've seen JP Nadda in so many of his speeches attack all these regional parties and say that they were too inward looking, that they only cared for themselves, that they didn't really care for people. So he really made a pitch, a long-term pitch over over the last 2-3 years, if not more, in these places. So a very concerted effort to try and win over them, and they succeeded.
So we have a lot of questions coming in. We have about 20 minutes. Let me just start to incorporate them into the conversation, and I'll try to group them together because we have a few like-minded questions. Sunetra, let me just stick with you for a second. There's a question about the BJP in the South, just following on from this conversation we've been having. Do you think that we're at the point when we can say with some degree of confidence that the BJP is now the principal opposition in places like Telangana, like Tamil Nadu, and I guess at least these 2 states in the South?
I wouldn't say that. I would definitely say that in Telangana, because it's a fight. It's become a direct fight between the Congress and the BJP, where of course they seem to have the Congress is pitted against Revanth Reddy, a former ABVP, a part of the saffron, so a product of the saffron family, so to speak. And some people, of course, said that Revanth Reddy, the reason why he's been so successful there, even though he's from the Congress, is because he knows what it's like to be as dogged as the BJP. So I would say that of Telangana, definitely, but I won't say that of Tamil Nadu, because the AIA DMK there is very strong. They continue to fight over there, and we will know in just the upcoming assembly elections as well. So BJP needs to do a lot more work there. Of course, their point is that their tragedy, because they were able to significantly increase their vote share, once they reach the stage of 20%, it's that at that stage is when they become the principal opposition or the main player in the state. So that's what they aim to do. But at the moment, it seems difficult for the AIA DMK to be completely dismissed.
Rahul, a couple of questions about Muslims in identity politics. You know, I wouldn't say it was the defining motif of this campaign, but certainly the speeches of many BJP star campaigners, not least the Prime Minister, that were inflammatory, divisive. Some people have classified them as hate speech. I think raised a lot of eyebrows. Now, what's interesting, and people have been spending the last 24 hours pointing this out, is in the holy city of Ayodhya, the site of the Ram Mandir, the seat of Faizabad, the BJP has lost. In Banswara in Rajasthan, where the PM made one of his most talked about speeches, the BJP also lost. As we think about kind of a Hindutva and these elections, can we draw any lessons, do you think, from these results?
So, what these results tell you that any kind of mobilizational strategy has its limit. Not just the ideological appeal or Hindutva, but even say over dependence or over reliance on Prime Minister Modi's appeal, or relying too much on, as Sunetra has pointed out, that they have a famed organizational machine on the ground of Panna Pramukhs and everything, right? And all of these stories were actually coming from some of parts of North India where BJP has lost. So all of this combined has worked for them in past, but any kind of mobilization strategy also has to square off with other kinds of challenges that will come in when you are in power or outside the power, right? Like when you are in power, there are going to be expectations of performance and not basically taking away of their rights. I think inflammatory speeches might have led to also counter polarization. See, I think, and some of this analysis needs to be done to figure out what actually happened. To me, like my first reaction after Prime Minister's speech in Banswara was that it could be three things. One, it's in party's DNA, right? And party has basically gone back to what is it's part of. Second, it was a knee-jerk reaction to the decline in turnout, or that they received some kind of feedback that we are not doing that well and we need to basically charge up. And third, I've been thinking about this. Prime Minister has never campaigned in a non-charged up election. Think about it: 2002, 2007, 2012, 2014, 2019. There had to be an emotive element when PM campaigns. And so maybe some of those things led him to do what he thought. And especially like in his own way, they were also trying to take on the narrative which Congress had started, that BJP is once it gets 400, it will take your sort of like constitutional rights of reservation. So what Prime Minister was trying to do through that, like basically using Hindu-Muslim religious polarization, bringing the idea of economic justice, which Congress was trying to promise on redistribution and everything, and then using a powerful symbolism of Mangal Sutra, just marrying them together to make. So I think had it worked, we would have seen a very different kind of result, right? And some of this has worked in past. I wouldn't rule out that it's now over and Indian voters are past this. Every mobilization strategy succeeds in a contest, and all mobilization strategies have limits. And that what political party, like the lesson for political parties, is that there are limits to what these things can achieve.
Sunetra, you want to jump in?
No, I just wanted to add that one of the theories that I heard from a BJP person about why the PM spoke like that and then kept it is because they said it was the Prime Minister's attempt to again nationalize the thing. In Rajasthan, things were so localized. The fact was that you had local people, in those areas. The Churu MP had left because he was upset about Rajendra Rathore and being denied a ticket. And that had a major ripple effect, and all the Rajputs were upset and things like that. So things had become so localized in Rajasthan that people felt, that the party felt that it needed to be an overarching issue. And what better than Hindutva. So this is one theory that I've heard. Also, a very quick anecdote to what Rahul said, which reminded me of something. Rahul was talking about the Panna Pramukhs and things like that, right? The famed organization. So what went wrong this time? And this I heard during the campaign when, people started saying, look, you might lose 6 seats in Rajasthan, you might lose a few in Haryana. They said that because because BJP was all these tools now, all these agencies willing to help out. So the old-fashioned cadre worker who does this not for the money, but because he believes in it, had been now replaced by people, young kids, young college people who'd been hired by these fancy firms, and they were paid 20,000 or I don't know. I remember he telling me a figure which the party worker wasn't getting, and so they were moving around in bikes, not doing a really thorough job like the party worker would have done. And so this modernization of the organization led them to giving wrong feedback. So these are just two things that we heard, which we could perhaps keep in mind, because it comes from BJP's internal MPs and others who were trying to analyze what was really happening within the BJP.
Well, I think there's also an analog at the candidate level, right? I mean, obviously, over, I think, 100 BJP MP incumbents were replaced, right? Many of these replacements came from other parties. And so, when you have a cadre-based party like the BJP, where people are coming up through the Sangh Parivar, then get elevated, this can create some tension. Rahul, let me ask you about this question about divergent voting at the state and national level, right? We have a question, which is a really good question, which is, why is it that the citizens of Delhi insist on voting for the AAP and Arvind Kejriwal, not just voting for them, but overwhelmingly voting for them in Vidhan Sabha elections, while the same people are voting for the BJP, which swept Delhi in national elections, right? These are two different parties, two different ideologies, two different DNAs. The leader of one party is responsible for potentially jailing the leader of the other party. How do you think about this?
Milan, if you and I were having this conversation among ourselves, our next line would have been, "There's no paper on it. Let's write one." Right? So yes, I think we don't know much about split voting in India, and I think it's a complicated thing. See, in Odisha, the split voting is happening on the same day. Voters are going to the booth, and then they are deciding a different party for Lok Sabha election, a different party for Assembly election. Even this time, while BJP has won both Lok Sabha and Assembly election in Odisha, the vote share gap in Lok Sabha is much larger than in Assembly election. In Assembly election is very, very tight. So something is happening, one on like split voting versus split outcome. And then you've seen this happening in Karnataka, where BJP has been doing well in Karnataka in Lok Sabha elections every time, where Congress has been able to return multiple times in Assembly election. Same thing is happening in Delhi. But what I am so some people again make it a very simplistic kind of an argument that, voters are smart and they want something from this government. Actually, both parties have a core base of 35% now. What's happening actually of 15 to 17% voters in Delhi who are making this switch. Now, what we don't have an answer, and this requires both analysis of election commission data as well as survey data, which tells you something about, and I wrote a piece for HT on this, which is perhaps post-election, someone should look at the geography and sociology of split voting. And right now, we don't have an available answer to this question.
So we have about 10 minutes left, a lot of questions. So let's try to do a lightning round or two here. And I'll just ask you both to kind of keep your answers short, and we'll try to incorporate as many as possible. I want to leave time at the very end about what comes next. I wanted to use most of this conversation to talk about what's happened, but of course, there are a lot of questions about what comes next. And Sunetra, we're going to lean on you in particular. Let me just ask you first, Sunetra, about the Congress. A couple of questions saying, yeah, you talk about what the BJP did wrong. What about the Congress? Coming back to where you ended. The question is this: did their caste mobilization strategy, building the campaign around this question of inequality, a caste census, and so on and so forth, did that work in their favor, in your judgment?
Well, they definitely think so, and we can see it in particular seats as well. For example, in Cooch Bihar, of course, this is the Trinamool Congress, which didn't work. Everyone didn't work together, but you had it in places like Uttar Pradesh as well. But in Cooch Bihar, they pointed out that the Dalits have been in Cooch Bihar because it's the majority of Dalits in that constituency, and they have been voting for a BJP MP. But they did specially catered campaign for them. They held conversations over there, and they, spent a lot of time there, did extra meetings, and there they were able to win this. Cooch Bihar Trinamool was able to win it this time with a smaller margin as well. If you speak to the strategists in the Congress who've been talking about this, they've been working on it because Rahul Gandhi has been very keen on this. They've been working on it since the Karnataka campaign. They really feel that, and they've catered all that. That's all. If there's one thing that Rahul Gandhi did right, is to keep his messaging very, very focused. And I think he kept it on caste. He kept talking about the OBC chief ministers. He kept talking about the 75%. He kept talking about representation. And that they felt, while it may not have got all of us very excited, or we may have thought, okay, he's repeating himself, but they felt that that really had a lot of impact within, because they did what they called, bursts of it on social media, on WhatsApp and things like that. And they felt that it really worked with the communities. And of course, we see it in the vote share in places in the SC/ST constituencies as well, which the Congress or the India partners had a better strike rate this time than the BJP in winning.
So one more retrospective question, then we'll end looking forward. Rahul, let me ask you, urban-rural split. BJP is known as an urban party. The past 10 years, that's changed. They become an urban and a rural party. What do we know thus far about the results in terms of those voters and how they might have broken this time?
So, Milan, let me also add something on the Congress question, and then I'll come back on this piece. I think Congress did a couple of things differently in comparison to the past. Yes, given the anticipation that Congress, like even if it improves its performance, it's not going in triple digits, may end up around 65, 70 with similar number of vote share. Like 5 things. Alliance, they conceded more ground than anyone would have anticipated.
Yes.
2, settling the leadership question that, in some ways, Mallikarjun Kharge had more autonomy than anyone anticipated in terms of decision making. 3, there was a little bit more clarity on the ideological line, something which Sunetra also hinted at. Whether it would have given them dividends, we didn't know, but at least it became clear that Congress is going for very left of the center ideological line. 4th, I think their campaign was much, much clearer this time. Their ads were getting more traction, much more funnier, while they continue to have, their on-ground presence still remains weak. I think they were able to match BJP on social media campaign. And 5th, I would say, at least the first Bharat Jodo Yatra. I still have doubts about the second Yatra, though now, everything would be looked from how much they have been able to improve. That mobilization gave a semblance of organization on the ground. And so I did write a piece for Dainik Jagran Hindu saying that these 5 things have happened. Whether it will actually change things for the Congress or not, we would only figure out once the results they come out. So I think these 5 things were important. Initial sense from the 2024 results do indicate that in rural seats, BJP have taken a beating. If you lose out in northern Rajasthan and UP and West Bengal,
Yes.
compared to 2019 election, these are rural pockets. Even in eastern UP, like if you look at the UP map, right from Kanpur towards the eastern UP, BJP only won urban seats: Lucknow, Varanasi, Allahabad, Gorakhpur. Right across that rural belt, BJP lost most of the things. But they have, like in other states, if you look from Gujarat to Odisha, they have.
But Banaskantha and Gujarat they lost, which is another rural seat, right? Which was unthinkable.
So overall, I think in comparison to past. The kind of penetration they were making in rural areas, I think, has peaked. And see what's also happening, Milan. They have lost SC reserve seats, lot of SC reserve seats. And so if you look at SC reserve, rural seats, all these overlap. So I don't know whether it's a SC backlash or a rural backlash or again agrarian backlash, because in terms of the composition, these overlap.
So, Sunetra, let's just look forward very quickly. NDA meet. We've seen some reporting about what TDP, JDU want. What is the cost of doing business? What is the horse trading that's happening before this government is formed? What do you expect?
Well, they want juicy cabinets and then infrastructure. I mean, officially they're not revealing. I'm not sure exactly, but I've heard definitely agriculture ministry is something that the LGP, and there are so many of them who want something. So agriculture, and you also have Jayant Chaudhury's RLD with 2 seats in Eastern UP. They want some cabinet position. And of course, the TDP, it seems there are some reports, they're not confirmed, of course, that they are interested in the JDU, I beg your pardon, is definitely interested in the home ministry portfolio. The TDP also wants a similarly juicy one. So will the top 5 portfolios, we are definitely going to see a breach in them. Anyway, the BJP had told us very clearly, senior leaders, that the new Modi part 3 government is going to look very different. You should expect lots of changes in cabinet, but this result means that we're going to see a varied cabinet as well, Milan.
I mean, I think the most interesting reported ask is the TDP wants the speakership of the Lok Sabha.
Yes.
And this is crucial because there is a lot of controversy over the implementation of the anti-defection law. And the only person who matters in deciding whether or not you should be disqualified from parliament for voting against the party whip is the speaker. It's not the courts. It's not the party leader. It's the speaker. And I think that tells you a lot about how legislative politics works these days. Rahul, a group of questions around what changes. Does this give democracy, quote unquote, liberal values, the media, religious tolerance, those sorts of issues, more space because the BJP now has a check by way of coalition partners, right? We have this model again of saying, when you have a single dominant party, Congress or BJP, they suffocate independent institutions. When you're hemmed in by coalition partners, you want a more level playing field. What can we expect?
So, the rational expectation is that once power is diffused, you have more pressure points and everyone is going to exert more autonomy and independence. We hope so that happens even in India. But ultimately, the way I want to look at politics, and especially power politics, leaders are not constrained by numbers. They are going to interpret this mandate in their own way. Politics is also dynamic. So what we expect to happen, is not going to be permanent for next 3, 4, 5 years. Every 6 months, situation is going to change depending upon what kind of accommodation is happening within the BJP, within the NDA alliance, and how BJP is going to perform in state assemblies. If 3 crucial state assemblies are going to happen in a couple of months, Maharashtra, Haryana, and Jharkhand, BJP didn't do well in those states this time. And if it improves its performance, wins them, I think the power balance will tilt their side. But if they perform badly, I think then there would be more extraction of pound of flesh. So I think that sort of like contestation will continue to happen. If you ask me what my expectations from the next government is, very seriously, whoever heads this government, we need a serious federal bargain, a grand bargain on federal lines, accommodation of various kind of interests, given the position we are in. Unless that happens, we will continue to see some of the tussles we had seen between 2019 and 2024, and that will put us in a very difficult spot.
Sunetra, about 60 seconds before we wrap up. Any final thoughts in terms of what you're looking for in the coming days, weeks, months with respect to this NDA 3.0?
Well, one of the things that seemed almost inevitable, and Amit Shah had said in his interviews, is that when they come back, the thing that they're going to really implement is the only core agenda that is left from the BJP's core values is uniform civil code. Well, that with this mandate looks very, very difficult, and I think that has become clear, and that is not something that a lot of the allies will want, especially Nitish Kumar among others. So that so that looks completely different. And like Rahul, I'm looking forward to what happens in Maharashtra and in the Haryana elections, because they've really had a tough time. Many people feel that, and they were counting on the fact that they will do so well in Lok Sabha that they will be able to amend things and improve things just ahead of the local elections. But that looks very tough now as well.
I want to thank both of you, Sunetra Choudhury, National Political Editor for Hindustan Times, Rahul Verma, Fellow at CPR and Assistant Professor at Ashoka. We could go on and on and on, but I want to encourage all of our viewers out there to keep tabs on what both of you are doing and saying and writing. Rahul, I think you have a lot left to say about the Congress, digging into the data of this election. Sunetra, I think you are following the government formation process very, very closely with your colleagues in the HT Newsroom. I want to thank both of you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It
Milan.
was great fun.
Thank you.